So welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video, and today's video is another unbox video, and hopefully it goes a lot better than my other unbox video, my latest unbox video, which the case was stepped on and the case was cracked as well. Just looking at this one though, it looks a lot better. It comes in like one of those medium priority mail boxes, so I think this one will be okay. Let's get right into it here. This is a CGC 9.8 issue, and this issue is a little bit more kind of up my alley normally, where it's an 80s issue, so a little bit more familiar with like 80s and 90s books, whereas my last two unboxes have been like modern books, like an Immortal Hulk #1, and then the one that didn't really work out, my last unbox video was Avengers 684, the first Immortal Hulk. This book, a little bit different. It's a book from 1988, and it's a Batman book. It's actually a detective book, and I let you guys know periodically throughout the channel that I think this book's kind of a really sort of underappreciated, underfollowed good buy. Certainly not like a main key issue, but still certainly key and does have a first appearance. Yeah, and periodically in the last maybe 10 videos or so, I've mentioned it a couple times about how I thought it was could be a really cool kind of under the radar buy. And yeah, I was lucky enough to have one pop up in Canada. I got all these styrofoam beads I want to keep in the box here. Lucky enough to for one to pop up in Canada though, and this auction was a buy it now or best offer. So yeah, and I had also covered this issue on our pricing videos, maybe once or twice, so I had a general idea of the last couple issues, what they went at, and I had a couple issues before, in the month before this, go for $275, and actually ended up paying $250 for this issue, so a little bit less than what kind of the last two had sold for, so that wasn't too bad. And you'll see that this one's actually pretty hard to find because it is so underfollowed that, on the CGC census, we'll take a look at it once I reveal it, and because it is quite rare. Okay, let's go here. It's good for this box. Usually half the video I'm like trying to just rip open pieces of tape and rip open the packaging and stuff, but this seems to be good. Okay, let's see. Piece of styrofoam everywhere. Okay, let's see if we have better luck than the last unboxing video. And yeah, so far it's looking really good. Okay, let's get it out of the package here. I'll show it to you. Yeah, it looks really good so far. So far so good. Okay, so my newest comic book is Detective 583. And yeah, so this issue specifically, I want to take a look at it really quick, because in the pictures, it looked really good. It really did. Yeah, there's a little... Okay, no, it's a tight case. Kind of felt like it was a little... Let's take a look here, though. Yeah, it does look really good. Yeah, in the pictures, it looked really centered and just a really solid copy. And yeah, it really is. Oh, it's got that same kind of advertising as a lot of, I think Amazing Spider-Man 300 has this ad. It is an 1988 book, so that's the same year Amazing Spider-Man 300 came out. Okay, so yeah, we'll get a little bit more into this issue. Detective Comics 583. So in the Overstreet price guide, this comic book is literally not even a key issue. It's it does say like first Scarface and Ventriloquist. We'll get into that a little bit more. But it's not worth more than all the other issues around it. So it's a bit of like, definitely an underfollowed, underappreciated key issue. Getting into 1988 here. Let's just look quickly on the CGC census, because, I've always liked Scarface and Ventriloquist. If you're not familiar with that villain, he was in the Batman animated series. It's basically like a possessed ventriloquist guy. And his name is Arnold Wesker, and he holds like a gangster Scarface mannequin, and the gangster Scarface mannequin guy does all the talking and whatever. It's awesome though. I think it's just like only in Gotham City can a villain like that be created. So I always thought it was a really cool villain, a really cool idea. But yeah, let's get into the CGC census on this, because there's not a lot of these in the CGC 9.8, which is really kind of what really attracted me to this issue. So Detective 583, there's 74 of these in the CGC 9.8, so this is one of 74 right here. And you know me, I'm always really into those limited numbers, and you know, anything under 100 of something, if you can get it and there's a first appearance and things like that, I think that's probably going to be a really good buy, you know, looking forward in the future for the long term. This issue got, you know, a bit of a backstory in the last year or two here, because the Scarface and ventriloquist character had a appearance on Gotham, the TV series, and it was well liked and well received, and apparently it was only under for a show or two. The Scarface doll ends up getting shot in the face, apparently, is what I read, and I personally never saw the show, but it did get really good reviews, and apparently the actor did a really good job playing it. So I think at that time this issue sort of blew up a little bit, whereas, you know, before that this would have been maybe a bit of an underfollowed key, but probably would have only been selling for about $100 to $150. Now and generally selling for about $250 to $300. I think sort of on the back of that Gotham appearance, and you know, just more collectors looking for those underfollowed first appearances, especially ones with less than 100 of them on the CGC census. So that's really good. 74 of these on the CGC census. The CGC 9.8 ratio is 32.5%. So out of all graded copies of this, 32.5% are 9.8s. And that's getting pretty high, but for Batman's a little bit different, because I think of all graded copies, there's only like 300 or 400 of them, all in, you know, all of the graded copies, not 9.8s. So, and this is a good opportunity, I think, to compare to a Spider-Man issue, because I think Batman issues are a lot better value, and if you're really into limited numbers like I am, you get way less in the numbers as far as, you know, for certain key issues with Batman and Detective Comics. So, like, just a quick comparison, a 1988 Spider-Man book, Amazing Spider-Man 298, which I think is, you know, obviously they were made in the same year, they're both 1988 books. That Amazing Spider-Man 298 is kind of like a secondary key. It's the first Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, first Eddie Brock cameo. So I think they're pretty similar, just as far as years and first appearances, and kind of they're both sort of secondary keys. But, you know, looking on the CGC census for Amazing Spider-Man 298, there's 624 of them in the 9.8s. So, same year, a first appearance on both of them, both sort of secondary keys. I wouldn't say they're like the main keys of their era, but Amazing Spider-Man 298 has 624, and this one has 74. And, I mean, that's the crux of why I really, really love a lot of Batman issues from the 80s. And, you know, like, it's a little, you know, you got to look into the details a little bit, because, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 298 is a really good book, and, you know, if you look at the 9.8 ratio for an Amazing Spider-Man 298, it's at 12.8%, so 12.8% of all graded copies are 9.8s, whereas this one's 32.5% of all graded copies are 9.8s. So, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 298, there's so many of them that even though there's more of them in the 9.8s, it's actually more rare in the 9.8s because the 9.8 ratio is lower. So on a relative basis, it's more rare, because there's just way more Amazing Spider-Man books than detective books, just as far as popularity, and you know, I think Detective 583 had about 400 or 500 graded on the census, and Amazing Spider-Man 298, I'm not sure the exact how many there was graded, but it's like 3,000 or 4,000. So I mentioned on this channel before how I'm a huge Batman fan and Spider-Man fan, but in general I kind of like Batman's secondary key issues, and even key issues as well, better, because there's always way less of them than the equivalent Amazing Spider-Man issue. And this kind of illustrates that really good. You know, it's a 1988 Spider-Man book has 624 9.8s, a 1988 Batman book has 74. And, you know, for me, I'd rather have a 1 of 74 item than a 1 of 624 item. And, you know, even looking at prices on Amazing Spider-Man 298 versus this book, Amazing Spider-Man 298 on an auction will go for about $270 to $280. This one purchased for $250. So you're in about the same price range, maybe a little bit less than the equivalent Spider-Man comic, but again, you're getting a way more limited number on this issue, on Batman issues in general. And that goes for Batman and Detective Comics. So, always a big fan of, you know, investing in Batman issues and detective issues. I did a video quite a while ago now about all my 1980s Batman books, but I got to bring them out again and just do another video explaining why I recommend them so highly. And it really, the crux of it kind of goes down to this comparison that we're doing. Like, an equivalent Spider-Man book from the same era just has so many more copies, whereas a Batman book is so much more limited, and I think possibly even a better investment. And I know, you know, Amazing Spider-Man books I still love. I have all those keys as well. They're really popular, so you know, you'd imagine that there would be more of those copies. But Batman is just so iconic as well. So I don't think, you know, the fact that Batman's iconic, Spider-Man's iconic, they're both about the same. I don't think there should be that many more Spider-Man comics than Batman comics. But that's just how it works out. There was just a little bit less Batman printed, and you know, Batman collectors, based on these CGC 9.8 ratios, Batman collectors probably were more serious collectors. You know, they bought their key issues, they put them away, and then, you know, once CGC came around in the thousands, they kind of took them out and got them CGC'd. So that's why, you know, 32.5% of all graded copies of these are CGC 9.8s, and it's 12.8% in the Amazing Spider-Man, because Amazing Spider-Man, they're just more traded, more, you know, passed back and forth, damaged more, so you get a little bit lower of a 9.8 ratio, even though there's more 9.8s. So on a relative basis, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 298 is a little bit more rare than this book. But yeah, again, given that this is a 1 of 74 and Amazing Spider-Man 298 is a 1 of 624, I still really like the value proposition of Batman comics a lot. Okay, so yeah, in Scarface and Ventriloquist, I totally recommend to watch Batman the Animated Series from back in the day. Such a cool villain, such a kind of underappreciated villain. I think Scarface and Ventriloquist and First Anarchy as well. Get a nice issue of First Anarchy and First Scarface and Ventriloquist. I think those are two kind of underfollowed Batman villains that you could pick up for a relatively cheap price. And the Anarchy villain is not as rare on the CGC census as this issue. So I know that, yeah, the Anarchy book, First Anarchy, I think you could pick up for like kind of $100 to $150, anywhere in there. This issue paid $250 US for. Again, from my pricing videos a couple weeks before, there were a few that sold for $275, and I think this one is a really good copy. It's just pristine. It's really centered. Yeah, it looks amazing, actually. And that, in a sense, I wouldn't have purchased this if, you know, say like on the side it just was off-centered, or maybe there were like pages popping out here. And yeah, the pages are just crisp white, like just supple, super white. Like for an 88 book, or yeah, for 1988, I mean, I have a lot of 80s 9.8 white pages, and a lot of times the pages are not looking as good as this. Like this is a super crisp 9.8. Yeah, and it did look like that on the pictures, and it certainly shows like that in real life too. Alright, yeah, really happy to have this book, a 1 of 74 on the CGC census. So, you know, when I saw that, and me being a huge 1980s Batman fan, this was sort of, I would say, kind of on my secondary watch list. You know, I wanted it, but, you know, probably wasn't one that I was going to go out and try to buy right away. I was just going to kind of wait for a really good deal. And just so happens in Canada, really good deal popped up. Yeah, he was asking $300 American, and I offered $240, and he counter offered, and then I offered $250, and that was going to be my last offer, and he accepted that offer, luckily. Okay, I think that'll be it for this episode, though, on Team CGC 9.8. If you haven't already, please join the team and subscribe to the channel here. Hit that bell, get all the latest notifications. Doing about 4 or 5 videos a week at this time. But yeah, you know what? Batman 583, I highly recommend this book. If you are a Batman fan, if you collect Batman books, highly recommend it. But as far as like an underfollowed, underappreciated Batman book from the 80s, I don't think you can do any better than this. And then you look on the census, a 1 of 74 item. I love that about it. So yeah, you know, it was something I jumped on. I really looked really good in the pictures, looks really good in real life. So, yeah, really happy with this book, and glad this unbox was a good unbox, because the last one was a bit horrendous, and I ended up returning that one to the post office today while I was grabbing this package. And yeah, it looks like the seller's pretty cooperative too with the return, so I think I'm going to get my return probably in the next couple days. So that seems to be working out. But thank you very much for watching today. Glad I could unbox this book and kind of share the excitement with you. Yeah, this is a really great looking book for a 1988 book. Yeah, super glad I kind of jumped on that. Okay, but thank you very, very much for watching. And yeah, please subscribe if you haven't already. That would be so much appreciated. And I will see you on the next video.